What up guys, Konsento here, and this is going to be a video on my adventures of building my new PC and all the good fun problems I've encountered during that whole process. It's going to be awesome. Anywho, the video you see behind you is a character from Gigantic. She's a support character, an awesome character called Griselma. She summons these hands that you can, they're like turrets that kind of set in place. I think you can summon like 2 or 3 of them, and yeah, you can kill people without even being there. It's pretty awesome. I didn't do so well with her, but yeah, I can see her potential. Anywho, check this video out. If you like it, hit the like button. If you don't like it, hit the dislike button. Make sure you share it with your friends. And make sure you check me out on Twitch. My stream times are down below. And if they're not down below, go ahead and yell at me in the comments so we can have a conversation about it. Anyways, check you guys later. Peace. As you guys know, I have a brand new computer with almost all new parts, except the power supply. Now the initial goal wasn't to build a new computer, but to just buy new monitors. So the story begins with me spending a few days scouring the internet for the best screens that I can get at a decent price. During Cyber Monday, I found that screen. For around $85, I found a screen that had everything. It was great for gaming, productivity, had great viewing angles, and was VESA mount compatible. That being well within my budget, I quickly added 3 to the cart. I headed to checkout and they asked if I would like 3 warranties. I wasn't sure if I needed 3 since they were all of the same model. I thought that if I just got 1, I could cover whichever one broke first. So after spending about 10 minutes thinking this over, reading over the warranty, I thought, what the heck? This is way under my budget anyways. Let's just grab 3. I went back into checkout and proceeded to purchase it. And the next screen said that all the monitors were sold out, but left the warranties in the cart, of course. I decided to keep the monitors I had and buy something I've been wanting for a while now. A new CPU. A Core i7 67K was on a flash sale on eBay. It was only for $291 from its original price of $385. Right now it's about January 13th, so you can find that same card at about $340 due to Kaby Lake being released, but that was a big sale for me, so I bought it. My friend told me that it was a great deal, but to make sure I bought the right size. The CPU arrived and I wanted to immediately slap it in. I opened my case, removed my old i5, and proceeded to add the new i7. It didn't fit. I completely misread the chip, thinking it was a LGA 1155, but it turned out to be a LGA 1151. Just misread one number. Rather than return it and miss out on that sale, I decided on the next best option. Buy a new motherboard. Then I looked at my graphics cards. 2 Radeon 7850s and Crossfire. I thought, since I have all this new CPU power, I might as well upgrade these two. So I purchased the Radeon RX 480, 8GB, which was on sale for only $210. Still frustrated with my current monitors, I searched for a cheaper solution. The main thing I wanted was more workspace and better contrast. My solution? The LGA 25UM56. After some research, I found that you gain a lot of workspace, the main thing I wanted. I don't know anyone with the ultra-wide to get feedback from, so I decided to be the first. And I'll just say, I'm really satisfied, guys. Though 3 screens are amazing, I no longer feel the immediate need for them, since I have all this extra room on my ultra-wide. So now at this time, I'm shopping around for a motherboard. I'll just say, guys, that motherboards is the hardest part to buy since they come with so many different features. After a couple of days, I found myself looking at 2 boards, one from Asus and another one from Gigabyte. Now the Gigabyte board had a few more features for about $10 more, but I really wanted the Asus board, but because the Gigabyte had so much more on it, I was kind of leaning towards that. But then out of nowhere, the price changed on the Gigabyte board. It went from $160 to $120 with a $60 rebate, where the original price was around $250. At this point, it was no longer a competition, and I immediately purchased the Gigabyte board. So when I opened up my computer and I realized my RAM sticks were DDR3, and I just realized that the board that I just bought only uses DDR4 RAM. So back to shopping I go. So the board comes in, and I slap in the CPU. I then try to mount the heatsink. It had a 3-pin connector on the heatsink, and all over the board were only 4-pin connectors. Believing that I made yet another error, I removed the heatsink and decided to remove the CPU and place it back in its box. I replaced the motherboard pin cover, but incorrectly. In doing so, it ended up bending some of the pins. Oh man, I panicked, and I rushed online to find a solution. I went to Best Buy to see if I could find another heatsink that could fit the board, grabbed some thermal paste, ran to Walmart and grabbed a magnifying glass. I then grabbed some needles and a small screwdriver, grabbed my phone and attempted to straighten out all the pins. So imagine me holding my phone in my mouth, trying to light up my board, with one eye looking through a magnifying glass, using a pin and a small screwdriver to straighten out these pins. So I corrected all of the pins except for 2. They seemed to be bent in such a way that if I tried to straighten them, I could chance breaking them off completely. So I go online and learn from Linus Tech Tips that you can chance frying your chip or board depending on how the pins are. If they touch the wrong plates, touch each other, or not at all. So rather than take that chance and hurting my CPU or board, I just decided to take this loss and contact Amazon. Amazon allowed me to return the board and within a night shipped a new one. At this point, I'm just waiting on my RAM to get here to try it all over again. Sitting back in my chair, I laughed to myself, realizing that I've solved this exact issue with the heatsink before, that a 3-pin connector is compatible with a 4-pin connector. So my RAM arrives and my roommate's like, yo, since you've gone this far, why don't you grab a SSD? You know, going from a hard drive to an SSD is one of the most significant upgrades you could make. So I went on Amazon and searched for an M.2 since my board can support 2 of them. But I found this Samsung 250 EVO that was on sale for about $82, so I decided to grab that instead. The drive arrives and I try to place it to my case, and the case doesn't have a place for an SSD. I had to buy an SSD mount. Alright, let me pause here and explain the kind of case that I have. My case is the Antec 1200, which is a full tower case that I got around 2008 when huge fans were the new hotness. Cool features aside, this case is heavy. It's about 37 pounds when it's completely empty. My main gripe about the case comes with adding and removing drives. You have to unscrew 8 thumb screws, then move the entire drive bay forward, but you can't just pull it out because the fan is attached to the bay. I guess you could bend the holders and remove the fan yourself, but then it makes it extremely hard to put back in the case. So while this bay is suspended in the air, you have to unscrew 4 additional long screws that hold in your drive, then reverse this entire process to put the bay back into its case. At this moment in time, I didn't have any extra long screws, so I couldn't even add a new drive if I wanted to. Alright, so when the mount came in, I thought, man, I hate this process so much, I just decided not to use it. So I mounted the SSD in the case by just one small screw near the top, just to hold it in place. I just had to keep in mind that it was like that when I moved the case around, since it was going to be in the case temporarily anyway. So with this case now frustrating me, I searched online for a new solution, looking for days, making sure I got one with everything I needed and will need in the future. I was not trying to take an L here. Then I found the best case reviewer on YouTube, Hardware Canucks. But through him I found the Antec S340 Elite. So I was sold, but Amazon was completely out of white cases. So I said, heck, I wasn't in a rush anyway, so I put one on back order and decided to wait for it. The next day comes, the new board arrives, and I put all the parts together and decided to fire it up. And the verdict? Nothing. The computer just kept going into a boot loop and no display was showing up. Defeated, I hooked my laptop up so I can try to figure this out and find an answer. After hours of searching and reading the manual, so much that it looks like it was a used book in an old library, I found that the main issue with my board is not being able to run a display without 2133 DDR4 installed. My RAM sticks that I bought were clocked at 3000, so I chose the one thing I never do unless all else fails. Take it to a repair shop. First I only took the RAM to the repair shop to make sure they were still working before I returned them. They tested the RAM and everything worked out fine. This made me feel relieved since returning these and getting new ones would take weeks. So I decided to bring the whole system to have it tested out. So I bring it in and tech opens my computer and immediately says, "Where's your M.2? You have 2 slots here. And you look like you put a lot of money into the system, so why didn't you get M.2? I laughed and said, because of sales, man. I got the SSD because it was on sale. He laughed and said, what a waste, but hey, it's your computer. You know, he was just making conversation, but all I could think was, God, I should have got that M.2 like I wanted to in the first place. So the tech removes my RAM and adds 2 2133 DDR sticks, and it turns on like nothing was wrong with it at all. He then upgrades the BIOS via flash drive since this was the only way he could do it. He looks at me and says, "You know this is a shit board. You should have went with ASUS." You know, ASUS downscales the RAM, and then you can change the setting in the BIOS and update the BIOS via the internet rather than the flash drive. All I could do was laugh at this point. Just, you know, remember when I said the price dropped from $120 for the board with a $60 mail-in rebate? Yeah, that was wrong. It turns out that Amazon put the wrong rebate price up, and Gigabyte said it was only $20. So yeah, I should have just got the ASUS board. At this point, everything was running, so I decided to get more service. I wanted to clone my hard drive to the SSD, optimize and clean the system, so when everything was put together, it would feel fresh and new without having to re-download everything. So I dropped it off that Saturday, and they told me it would take about 3 to 5 days to be finished. Alright, so my computer case comes a few days later, right? So when I get home from work, the first thing I do is walk my girls. While walking the dogs, I see the UPS truck stop in front of my building. Since I had the dogs, I didn't want to rush to the UPS guy to get my package, and figured I'd just grab it after they leave it. So I head home and see a huge box, and then something on the box. Looks like mud. I'm like, wait a second, what is this? So I smelled it, and it was not mud. It was freaking dog crap. Like, did the guy step in it and decide to wipe it on my box? Like what, like, why? I just left the box outside, honestly. I just left it there. And then I came back outside with some spray and paper towels, cleaned the box off, and then I just slid the back box into my apartment. You just left it unopened. I was not, you know, when you get a new package, you just want to crack it open. I just left it unopened. I was done. Alright, so I head back to the shop. 7 days later, and $100 later, I grab my computer from the shop. They show me that everything is working. I take it home, put everything in a new case. I boot it up, and of course, I run into some new issues. Every time I opened up any application, no matter what it was, I was met with either one or a barrage of these bad image errors. Applications wouldn't load up, application would just crash, but sometimes the application would still start and be okay for a little bit. At this point, it's the day after Christmas, and I really didn't want to take it back just yet, so I decided to keep it until Thursday that week to return it to the shop. The tech had told me that if anything was wrong with it, to just return it to him and he'll handle it. So the next visit, I wasn't planning on paying anything. But this time I made a list of every type of error I ran into. The repair shop was busy that day, but I wasn't. And I wasn't about to leave my new case there overnight. I was patient and I just stuck it through. And the tech was determined to cross off every error on my list. Turns out there was a corruption on the OS during the cloning process, which was the main issue. So yeah, that's my PC story, guys. And it all started with taking too long to read warranties. So next time, if you've already spent days looking for something, don't second guess yourself when you finally have them. Just listen to your gut and do it. So yeah, in the end, my computer's price is $1,794, but I only spent $920. That's a $874 save, and honestly, that's a win in my book.